get those goosebumps every time. You make everything feel fine. Worry about who's gone.
Yeah, the duties with Bear and Trippier. Newcastle United.
I get those goosebumps every time. I need the high, throw that to the side. I get those goosebumps every time, yeah. When you're not around, when you throw that to the side. I get those goosebumps every time.
Up the mags. Yes, sir.
Up the mags, yes, sir. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Loaded Mag NUFC. A little Sunday special for you. We thought we'd come and talk some more Newcastle United and bring a friend along with us for the chat. Welcome all into the chat. Make sure you're getting those likes up and doing all that good stuff. And thank you for joining us on this Sunday evening. Boys, Daz, Chris, how are you this evening before I come to our guest? How's things?
Oh, all good. Friend, is someone else coming? Someone else coming as well? Yeah. It's like you can't get away from Wolfie, though. Like even other chats I'm in, and they're talking about Wolfie. And what is it? What's going on? Wolfie is everywhere. Everywhere in this transfer window.
There's two of me, mate. I've got a twin.
Yeah, you've got Fabrizio Romano, Ben Jacobs, and Wolfie. David Ornstein as well, I suppose. But
in that order.
Chris, how are you?
All right, mate. Yeah, been a good weekend. Off to London tomorrow, so early start. But no, I'm all good, mate. I'm all good. The only thing, and I'm hoping we get a bit of clarity from Wolfie this evening on this. The only thing is, I'm starting to get a bit frustrated with these deals. I don't know why, but in the last 48 hours, I keep reading the same things like, oh, it's close, but we've still got stuff to sort out. And it's like, can we just sort the stuff out and just get the deal done? I mean, I'd love to be privy. I'd love to be privy to the conversations, and obviously none of us are. But yeah, it's just it feels like it's dragging on. I'm hoping it's all going to happen very soon, boys, and it's just bash. But yeah, we're edging ever closer to preseason starting, which I believe is tomorrow. And yeah, still yet to have that first signing. So yeah, I'm waiting with bated breath, boys. I'm waiting with bated breath. But Wolfie, how are you doing, mate?
Yeah, I'm good, mate. Same as you, just like avoiding thinking about tomorrow being Monday and the start of the work, the proper working week, if you like. But yeah, not bad. I'm with you. Like, if Elanga's going, just get on with it. But, you know, it's not. I guess we got to remember what's interesting in this window. I've been speaking to a lot of agents, and the information they give is crazy. But there's a lot more in a transfer window than how we play it on Football Manager. Do you know what I mean? It's like every clause has to be assessed, sent to the lawyers, and that's like just on the clubs agreeing. Then you've got the bonuses within the players, and he wants this much and that much, and what happens if this and the other. So there's a lot to. I'm hoping to try and get an agent on. So I think us as football fans, I think we find it quite fascinating to understand how it starts from start to end. I don't think any of us can kind of claim to have that kind of knowledge. So yeah, but you know, as we are layman football fans, just like get the deal done, move on. If he's going, I want to know who the replacement is. The boys are back in for us as well tomorrow, and it'll be interesting to see if Elanga turns up.
Yeah,
which I assume he will, because he's contracted to, isn't he?
And Pete, how are you doing, fella? You good?
Yeah, I'm all good. Look, let's get into this just because, it's a hot topic at the moment with both fan bases. And it's always good to get a different perspective from yourself, Wolfie, being a Forest fan. You have been very much on this deal. You've put a lot of content out on it. Some gone down well, some hasn't with the Newcastle United fan base. But we know you. We know that you love us, really. We know this is just a little parting shot with regards to the transaction that's potentially going to be happening sometime soon. But I just want to run through really quickly for anyone that's been sort of oblivious to what's been going on in terms of the situation with Anthony Elanga. The thing that's really kind of kicked it off is when Fabrizio Romano the other day, back end of last week, sort of reported that we'd sent a bid of 55 million. It then sparked in Craig Hope saying that we were on the verge of agreeing a deal for Anthony Elanga. David Ornstein dropped a little bomber, just a little one, saying that, we were trying to finalize the deal and things were moving through, as does friend of both channels, Ben Jacobs, also mentioned the same. And as we talked off air, Ben Jacobs was on Wolfie's channel. If you haven't seen that, make sure you check it out on Forest Fans TV. We then got some more on this, and it looked like we were just waiting for the green light. We were just waiting for things to be finalised, and Fabrizio Romano was almost toying with us. Wolfie still wasn't convinced. He still felt there was a little bit more money that needed to be put down on this deal. But what wasn't really a talking point that Craig Hope brought to the table, and Wolfie, I know we've had little conversations about this over the weekend, is this 15% that Man United will receive on any profit from the sale. And that is quite a big talking point. I want to get your opinions on that, Wolfie, as we go along. It has kind of gone into a different conversation. So Martin Hardy in the Times reported on actually Scalvini, which we'll come back to later on in the show. But what he did mention, which threw a lot of Newcastle United fans, is that he'd mentioned that the Anthony Elanga offer had been accepted by Forest. Hasn't been confirmed in any way, shape, or form. Now we're still waiting. Plattenberg and Rudy Gillette have also reported that it's now very close and that the structures of the deal just need to be organised. What we are now at the point is tonight, just before we went live about 20, 25 minutes ago, Craig Hope gave a little bit of an update. He has said tonight that I understand agreement for Anthony Elanga between Newcastle and Forest remains close, but it's also complicated. And some of the details still being worked on. There's hope to get it sorted, but until it's agreed, as we've just said, he's still contracted to Nottingham Forest. So that's kind of where we are since sort of Thursday. With regards to the Anthony Elanga deal. So look, Wolfie, you're the guest on the show. As a Forest fan, how are you seeing this moment at this moment in time of Anthony Elanga? I know you're frustrated. You kind of just want it through. Do you think it's going to happen? Like, how are you seeing it as a Forest fan, and how are your fan base seeing this situation at the moment?
Yeah, I mean, my overarching feeling is if he's going, just go. Like, at the end of the day, we lost Brennan Johnson, similar position to him. There was a lot of head loss in the fan base over that. How are we going to replace him? One of our own, blah, blah, blah. We got Elanga in his stead for 15 million. And I think you could make an argument in the Premier League. Elanga's had a very good output. Brennan Johnson did really well as well. But yeah, it's like, look, the feeling at the moment for me, after speaking to likes of Ben Jacobs and stuff, is this deal doesn't look like it's going to be rejected, but there may be negotiations within that deal. So what he was saying is 55 isn't what Forest want. It's 60 million that they do want for it. But there are ways around it, be it that Newcastle say, okay, if we give you 55, we'll pay. I'm making these numbers up, by the way. We'll give you like 70% of it up front rather than 50% of it up front. And that negates that 5 million. Or you may find Newcastle will say, all right, let's chuck in some Ballon d'Or add-ons and things like that, the stretch ones. So where it is, it's still stretching out. I've also heard reports today, I don't know how true they are, that Elanga's in between changing with agents. So that's probably going to cause another layer on it. So I don't know who. I would assume the agent he's currently with would have to finish that deal because they're going to want their commission, etc. on the deal. So that may cause it to stall. But I just think in general, looking at this transfer window, everything's moved very slowly. For you guys, extremely slowly. And it must be more frustrating for the Newcastle fan base, especially as we keep getting told that you guys are clear of PSR, that spending isn't such a big issue. I kind of feel like I expected more deals to be done already with Newcastle, if I'm being honest with you, the Champions League pool as well. But I think this deal probably does get done. I think both fan bases at the moment probably just like, if it's happening, get it over the line. There is a huge section of the Forest fan base that are totally against this deal, because the question is, how do you replace his goals and his GA? And if you take him out of the team, Chris Wood doesn't get anywhere near 20 goals in a season, because Anthony Elanga provided a lot of those assists. We've then seen rumours, I think the Guardian was saying that Forest are going to be linked with Bakayoko. He's the one they're looking to replace Elanga with, which I believe was one of your targets as well for this right-hand position. So it's very up in the air, mate, but it's in that stage now. I think that latest report that you showed was a puff piece, if I'm being honest. It didn't move the needle any further forward. It just was like, they're still talking. Okay, well, we knew that. And I'll go back to what Ben Jacobs said. He said it could be days, it could be weeks on this one. But Newcastle do want to get it done quickly. But there's no real pressure, I would say, on Forest to have to get the deal done by, X date, unless they're looking ahead to thinking, well, we need some time to find our replacement. My biggest grievance in all of this is that Forest should have bought in the replacement before doing the deal, in my opinion. Others will differ, mainly because once you create a first team player hole in your team, other teams know you're coming in for it. They know you've just taken 55 mil or whatever it is from Newcastle. Suddenly those prices go up slightly. So that's where I am. In terms of the valuation, who are we to decide what the valuation of a player is? Pete, you think he's worth 35 mil? I would say 60 mil we could probably get out of someone. But it is what it is, mate. I mean, does 5 mil in footballing terms make that much of a difference to either teams? Probably not. Probably not.
You say that, but that extra 5 mil may well get the deal done. So that's
but that's my point. Does it really matter in the bigger scheme of things in the footballing world, where they're bringing in 120 mil just from Sky or whatever it is, sponsorships, women's football teams being sold, and all this stuff? There's plenty of ways they can make their money.
Yeah. Well, the thing about it is that you look at this whole situation. The way I see it, and other people may see it differently, is that Newcastle United have obviously been given encouragement, which is why they've put multiple bids in. There's clearly a deal to be done here, and by all accounts, it seems like from certainly from the Newcastle side of things, from what we're hearing, is that like everything between kind of Forest and Newcastle is pretty much there. You touched on a point. I was going to touch on it later on, but I think it's a great time to bring it up now. And it's this point here. NUFC blog have touched on it this evening about the deal being delayed down to because of the agent switch. And he actually talks about it in a bit more detail on Ollie Hawkins, friend of the channel. Alanga's recently left CAA Stella, an agency well known to Newcastle United, and is in the process of switching to Panthera Sports. And talked about the fact that change is a reason for the deal to be held up, which, if that's the case, then that's understandable. What it does go on to say in that piece is that, as much as we all want this deal done as quickly as possible, these things take time. And with agents and agencies and switching agencies, they're going to want their piece of the pie too. They're going to want to make sure that if they're taking on Elanga as a new recruit, they're going to want to make sure the deal has been looked at properly. So they're going to probably look over stuff that the previous agent has looked at and look over and check things that are okay. They're going to want to make sure that the finances are there, both for the player and the agency. And so those things almost kind of halt deals, and they're not excuses. That's just genuine stuff that takes place. And this is kind of what I said to you, Wolfie, like when I mentioned it earlier, is that that's kind of where I think it's at this moment in time. But anyone else?
I just want to say on the agent stuff, you usually tend to see an agent switch at the start of a transfer window. I think, if I'm not mistaken, when Brennan Johnson was moving to Spurs, he changed his agents before the conversations were becoming public. Obviously, I'm sure they're going on in the background, but for the agent switch to happen mid negotiations, I think I can't remember of one myself. I don't know if you boys can.
It is a bit ridiculous that's happening now. I would have thought that Elanga would have known, and he obviously knew from before that Newcastle were interested, but he mustn't have known that there were they were coming this summer. If the process of us changing agents is only happening now, that's probably a good question for if you do get a show with an agent, Wolfie, about switching mid window.
Is it contractually? Are
Could
they
be,
contracted up to? I mean, let's be honest. We're only just into July. Was he not contracted potentially up until the end of June, and that then contract has ended, and so the change to the new agencies only happened in recent days, and so they're only just getting their feet underneath the table. That's just one potential scenario that could well have happened. But it's an interesting one in terms of how it's going. I mean, look. Do we think it's going to be getting done at this point, Daz, Chris? Are you still confident? I know you both saying you're frustrated and you just want it done, like we all do. But do you think it's actually going to get done in the end?
Yeah, I do. I think it is just a matter of time. And look at that. This seems a plausible reason for that. That's this slight delay. Just on the fee and the haggling between 55 and 60 talk. Look, that could mean a world of difference to us because we're managing a certain part of money and we've an awful lot of positions to try and fill. We also need to sell a few players as well. But as you know, Wolfie, that we have a lot of money behind us, but only so much money we can actually play with, and and our club and our owners want to play within the rules, not like some other clubs. So that's yes. And if we could swap you guys with them for the Champions League, bring that on. But I know you're still trying to take the place off Palace.
Yeah, we're still on the cards. Rich and D, they're both a little shakier in their boots this week, so I'm keeping them on their toes. I'm not fussed either way because I think they're both crap in comparison to the Champions League, but I'm not bothered on either one. That's my stance. It will remain the same. Even if we win it, I'll be saying, yeah, okay, we won it, cool. Let's move on to the Champions League now. So that's my stance. But can we talk about the player, boy? Because mixed signals I've had from you lot.
Come on, then.
I'm looking at you, Chris. I'm looking at you, Pete, right?
You've been dancing around this for about a week now. Tell me what the issue is.
It's interesting. I'm sure Pete won't mind me saying. This news broke when we were literally together in London, wasn't it? It was like literally, it's like, Pete, have you seen this? Sanad, have you seen this? And we started kind of going through it. And we were both, for fun, I was like, okay, cool. If the price is right, sell him. And Pete, I remember you asking me how much you think he's worth. I was like, about 50. You were like, oh, I think he's 35. But it's in terms of the player himself, I think he has kicked on at Forest, but I still don't think he's kicked on to what I expect of him. That's my gripe a little bit with Elanga. When he goes through patches for me in the season where he's unplayable. I always bring up the one where he came on against Aston Villa, turned the game around. We were 1-0 down. We won it 2-1. And he went on this lovely streak for a good few weeks on that. And then in the last kind of 10 games of the season, I felt he could have done more to impact it. There was many games where in my previews, it would always be Elanga should be the key to this match. Leave Elanga up there. Force him against the fullback. Go outside the fullback, cook him for pace and all this. It just wasn't happening. For me, he's a very streaky player, but he's a player I think personally, and maybe people would disagree with me, is that if he would go out on the outside more so than trying to cut inside, I think he would produce so much more because he can. I don't think there's many fullbacks that can keep up with him. In terms of pace, in terms of physically, he's a specimen. He trains so hard as well. I'm sure you guys have probably seen all the training videos from him and everything. Yeah. But I just think football IQ wise, there's still a few more digits that he will add as he progresses. And I just look at your team and I think someone cutting in does suit you. But if that's the case, like the inverted wingers, but I personally would prefer that someone to be left-footed on the right-hand side if I was looking at it from a Newcastle perspective. Now, where he has improved on is on his weaker foot. His left foot is actually pretty good. He scored quite a few goals with it, but it's still his weaker foot. He did go through this weird phase towards the end of the season where when he was on corners and stuff, he was taking them with his weak foot, which was baffling me, but okay. Maybe he was strengthening it up. if I'm being brutally honest with you guys, I still think Mbeumo would have suited your style better because he is that left footer who can play on the right hand side. I get it. You went in for him. It looks like he's going to Manchester United, but I'm still not 1,000,000% convinced that Elanga can go to those levels. He's reached that level, if that makes sense, but to go to those levels. And that's what United fans were saying to me when we signed him. So I don't know if any of that makes sense, but that's kind of my stance on him.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Chris, what do you think about what Wolfie's just said there?
Yeah, no, I think it's a fair comment. I feel like there's untapped potential with Anthony Elanga. I mean, I'm not going to lie, and Wolfie, that I think that's what you were alluding to earlier when you were saying you were getting a few mixed messages. Like for me, I think 55, 60 million is an awful lot of money to be spending. I would kind of, and do you know what? It made me feel a little bit better when us boys were talking about it the other night. I put Anthony Elanga in the same bracket as probably Anthony Gordon when we signed him, in that 40, 45 million bracket. But people did point out to me, which is a fair point, the fact that Anthony Elanga is probably further on than where Anthony Gordon was when we signed him. He's just come off the back of a fantastic season with Forest. And I tell you what, Wolfie, yeah, I must admit, particularly over the last 48 hours, I have been watching all these training videos of Anthony Elanga, and it has been very impressive. So clearly he takes his physical condition very, very seriously. Yeah. And he's somebody who's committed to the cause. And I think that's always good to see. The fact that he's doing all this training on his own, and that's probably in addition to the training he's doing with the club at the time, whether that be Man United or Nottingham Forest. You see, the thing is, Wolfie, I struggle to downplay the fact that Eddie Howe wants him so much. If Eddie Howe wants him so much and he is the target that he really, really wants, and he wants to bring him to the club, like I have the ultimate faith in Eddie Howe when it comes to his signings, because I look back at the players that Eddie Howe signed since he's been at Newcastle United, and I struggle to think of anybody. You could argue maybe Matt Targett, but Matt Targett did a job when he came in on loan initially, and then we signed him on a permanent basis because it just made sense because we needed a left back at the time. He's improved not just the players that he signed, but also the existing players within the squad. Like if you'd have said to me, when we got our takeover, Jacob Murphy, 25, 26, Jacob Murphy will be in, playing right wing for Newcastle. No, don't talk silly. And this is off the back again, like Anthony Elanga, off the back of a very, very good season. So I'm trying to stay positive over the sign, and yes, albeit I think it's a little bit too much. And people keep saying to me and the lads, and probably yourself as well, Wolfie, why are you bothered how much you buy or sell someone for? Why are you bothered? But the reason we're bothered is because in this PSR world that we find ourselves in, you've got to be careful with money, because money is no object, doesn't exist anymore. It's all very, very careful, very structured. So you have to be careful, because if you overpay for a player, it then could potentially impact on the next player that you want to bring in. And similarly, if we fast forward 2 years and Anthony Elanga doesn't work out the way that we want him to, imagine then trying to get rid of an Anthony Elanga that you've paid 55, 60, 65, 70 million on, and then you're trying to get him off the books on a very high wage. It's going to be very difficult, and that's then going to impact on your future signings. So you've got to box clever. But it's hard. It is hard. I just kind of want an outcome, like you were saying, Wolfie. I want it to either be announced he's joining Newcastle United, he's going to be a Newcastle United player, or similarly, he's not going to be a Newcastle United player, and then we move on. I just kind of want a resolution now.
Yeah, I think for me, just a couple of points on that. If I'm being objective about this, I don't think either club fully wins on this deal. Forget the money, forget everything else. I think Elanga is very integrated into the Forest kind of DNA at the moment. He's really good friends with Ola Aina, and shout out to the chat who was saying about Aina signing his new deal. And Callum Hudson-Odoi, they got this nice little click going on. And I've called this out a couple of times over this week, where when you guys came in for him in August or whenever it was in the summer window, one of the things Marinakis said, one of the reasons he rejected that deal was because he didn't want to break up the kind of bond that was happening at Forest. My question is, well, why is it okay to do it 10 months down the line then? Has that bond diminished? Because it looks stronger, if anything. And the reason, and that's why I think it doesn't really suit either club to the nth degree, because Forest will have to replace. That's a risk. Even if we go and get, say, a Bakayoko, as the links are suggesting in the rumours, there's still a risk involved in that. With him going to Newcastle, I don't think the whole Newcastle fan base, if they really were speaking freely, would say this was their number one choice as a fan to go there. So any player that comes in under that cloud straight away has those doubters about him. We saw it when Brennan Johnson went to Spurs. Pete, we've seen it on loads of panel shows where they just literally cussing him down, yet he is their top goal scorer, ends up scoring the winning goal for them in the Europa League. So he's going to come in with quite a bit of pressure on him if the price tag gets anywhere near 55 mil. And if he does go, and I'll say it to you guys, he's patchy in his performances. Red hot, cold, red hot, cold kind of thing. He starts with a cold 4 or 5 games. Yes, he'll have the excuse of adjustments, getting used to the team, getting used to the style of play. But then the pressure starts to mount more on him. So I think there is a loss-loss situation here for both clubs because of that.
I'm not sure.
I'm not saying it's like doomsday, Pete. I'm not saying it's doomsday.
No,
I'm just saying
no.
these aren't this isn't a perfect transfer for either club.
It can be seen that way. I mean, you can take the negative and positives of either. I mean, the fact, 2 things, 3 things, in fact. First of all, you'll be gaining nearly 60 million from him. So from a PSR perspective, that's great for you, and it allows you to really bulk up your squad to be capable of fighting in a European competition over the course of the season. So it allows you to kick on, although you're losing an important player. The second thing to that is that, yes, you're absolutely right. Anthony Elanga was not our first choice. Brian Mbeumo was definitely our first choice. But the fact that we didn't even get around the table with Brian Mbeumo meant that we had to look elsewhere. And it's very, very clear now, and most journalists that report on Newcastle United have said that Anthony Elanga is our top priority, which is why we're investing this much time into this particular deal. And that has a knock-on effect to what happens next, in my opinion. The third thing, and I think the thing that you may have not thought about, and I wouldn't expect you to because you don't support Newcastle, is the absolute thing that you've just mentioned is that where he's coming to and who he's coming to be managed by. Is that you're coming into Newcastle United, who are about to play Champions League football. You're coming into to Newcastle United, who are a team that's managed by one of the best managers in the league, that's improved players. Joe Linton, Jacob Murphy, Miguel Almiron until he left. Alexander Isak's got better since he's signed for the club. You could go through the list. Even the likes of Nick Pope is playing some of the, although we want a new goalkeeper during his time at Newcastle United, he's played some of the best football in his career. So yes, on the surface of what he's currently doing, Anthony Elanga, yes, there might well be question marks about what he does next and the fact that he's patchy. But for me, as a Newcastle fan, I'm not worried about that. I'm looking at the player, what he's capable of. Because we've had this conversation, Wolfie. We've gone back and forth on this. And I've been on this channel quite open and honest. I would say I wouldn't have wanted Newcastle United to pay 60 million for him. I don't think that that's the right value for him. But that doesn't mean that I don't like the player. I do like the player. I think he's a good player. And actually, I think at Newcastle United, I think he fits our system perfectly. And I actually think he'll improve under Eddie Howe. And this is part of the reason why Eddie Howe must be quite frustrated at the moment, because he would have wanted Anthony Elanga in day one, because he wants to work with these players to get them into the system, to get them tactically ready, fitness-wise ready for the season. So there's that element of what you're saying. I'm not disagreeing with anything you're saying, like straight up. I think you make some valid points, but I think from a Newcastle perspective, there is lots of positives here to kind of take in off the back of that. And Newcastle United have got history in the last 4 years of bringing in a player and genuinely making them better. And that's where I see Anthony Elanga. We might be paying 55 million for Anthony Elanga, but I don't expect it, but I wouldn't be surprised. I envision in the future Anthony Elanga's value doing what Anthony Gordon's value's done in terms of rising, because he's outperforming himself. You know, does Chris come in with anything else?
Can I ask the boys one question? Do you think he suits your style of play? Because I think he works well at Forest because it's a counter-attack defensive setup which leaves grass for him to run into. Where I don't see that same philosophy at Newcastle. I think you press quite well. I think you would like to play high up the pitch as well, which could annul some of his really strong assets.
Doesn't really matter, Wolfie, because Eddie Howe's getting his man, and he's going to mold him into what he wants. He may not have been his number one first choice, but we have to get this one over the line that we can. Like, we haven't brought in a signing for to the club for 3 transfer windows. This will be Eddie's choice, and it's one that he is going pushing the boat out for. He's got no one else above him dictating things. So yeah, look, he's going to take time for him to adjust to the way we play, but could see positive things come up from him.
You can't say it doesn't matter, Daz. It's a significant point. The styles are different.
Well, he sees the attributes that he's looking for. And,
yeah, but what do you see, Daz? What do you see? Not how. What do you see?
I see speed. I see he can cross the ball. I can see him scoring goals, scoring some wonder goals as well, especially one. So yeah, look at he wasn't my first choice, and I thought 50 million was a decent offer, but I think to get Eddie what he wants, I think 55 million is sufficient.
I'll disagree with you slightly on that, Wolfie, in terms of the styles are different. Newcastle United do play a counter-attacking style, particularly when they play 4-3-3.
But higher up.
Yeah, it is a higher press. But if you look at a lot of our goals, like, sorry, Rich in the chat, Palace fan, you only have to go watch what we did to them at St. James's Park when we beat them 5-0. That was a counter-attacking masterclass in what we did to them.
Did Rich just say Murphy's better than Elanga? Rich. He's so bitter about this Europa League stuff.
Yeah, Rich, that's kind of music to our ears if you are saying that, because we could potentially have both on our right-hand side next season. So that's the dream right there at this moment in time. But what I'll say is that, you know, looking back to that game in particular against Palace, like, you look at Anthony Elanga in that team, and he absolutely destroys them all day long. And there will be games for him where he does that. Don't get me wrong, he's not the finished article. I think you've alluded to that, Wolfie, already. He's not. One of the things that we as a club and a team need to improve on is being able to break down the low blocks. Now, he might play his best football in a counter-attacking team, but actually, having watched quite a bit of him this season, I do like what he does in tight spaces with the ball at his feet. He can unlock by a pass or a nice cross, whether it's with his left foot, his right foot. He does put the balls into the right areas, and sometimes that has been massively lacking. I'll go back to that Brighton game, which you ridiculed me for because we drew and we didn't win that game away at the Amex, Wolfie. But you know, it's a game like that a ball into the box or a killer pass that could be made, and Elanga's done that at times for you this season. I would like him to improve on that, but the team needs to improve on that, and so he'll be part of that improvement, I would like to think, over the course of next season.
I still disagree, mate. I'll tell you why. I think looking into next season, I see Newcastle on paper should be challenging at least for the Champions League spots next season. Okay, on paper. Obviously, the transfer window starts to play itself out and everything. I also feel that Newcastle's rep, in terms of as you're coming up against other teams, the respect level is going higher, which is what we saw happen to us. If you look at the part of the season last season, 24 season, the respect wasn't given to Forest. When we got into the second half, a lot more teams started to drop deeper on us and say, you know what? You have the ball. Let's see what you can do. We'll sit in a little deeper, see what you can break it down. And in those last 10 games, he wasn't that effective. When those teams dropped in deeper, he's not a player that can unlock a defense through a mazy dribble within the 18-yard box. He can do a dribble, as you saw against Man United, from one end of the pitch to the other when he's going full burners, full pace. He can keep that ball controlled quite well. And I expect going into next season that a lot more teams will see Newcastle as a serious threat or a hard game, or away at St. James's is always a difficult game anyway, and teams will look to be compact. And I think that's where he still needs to improve his game, because I haven't seen enough evidence of teams playing low block against Forest, apart from the likes of Brentford at home, Everton at home towards the end of the season, etc. Those games where I don't think he was that effective within it. So that's where I think potentially that's where the work's going to be needed with him.
No, it's good. This is why we ask opposition fans. It's good to know that we need to know this, because obviously we're going to be reacting to all things Newcastle United next season, and we're going to be talking.
I think he works well for you in the Champions League, Pete. When you come up against a big team, where maybe the onus is on them to attack, then you can start. Imagine him and Gordon on either flank. That's nasty pace there.
And nobody's talked about this. Like, we've touched on it on Loaded Mag NUFC, but like, he's got Champions League experience already.
Yeah.
Anthony Elanga has Champions League experience, and that is something that's been overlooked completely. Like, I referred to it in the last show. That goal against Atletico Madrid, away from home, where Man United were sitting in deep at that point, counter-attacking football, in and behind, finished his chance. I don't even care what the score was that day, but that goal typifies what he can bring to Champions League. So I absolutely agree with you. He can make the difference. And look, when does every single player make the difference in every single game?
Yeah.
This is why we're building the team, mate, is that we're building the team because we need certain players for certain games. Like, there were games last season, Daz, Chris, you'll be aware, as much as we loved Jacob Murphy last season and had a superb season, a career-defining season for him, there were games where we were putting our hair out because he just wasn't at it and he wasn't doing what we needed him to do. And so bringing in someone and do something a little bit different. There will be games next season where Murphy will start over Elanga, and it won't be because necessarily that Elanga's been dropped or anything like that. It will be because he's better fit for that particular game, and that's what Eddie Howe is building. He's building that within his squad, and that's really kind of exciting to see. But I know there's some questions in the chat, and there's one in particular from Ant that I think we'll throw out there. As I don't know if you've got the chats at the moment. There's one from Ant.
What's Ant crying about now?
Well,
my aunt. You talking about my aunt?
Yeah, your aunt. Yeah.
He says everyone is assuming Elanga actually wants to leave Forest. He's very happy here and maybe reluctant to go. That could be another play. Who knows?
Chris, you can't shake your head at that one.
Some of the videos.
Nah. Do you know what, Wolfie? And this question from Ant, it leads me nicely into a question I wanted to ask you. So I'm not saying he's unhappy. I'm not saying that at all. But I think he wants to move to Newcastle, and the reason I think that is because, what are your thoughts, Wolfie? Honest thoughts on these videos that keep getting posted every few days from Elanga with the likes of Asula. We're seeing loads of interaction on Instagram where he's like, oh, where's my invite, bro? Why haven't you invited me to come and have something to eat? What are your thoughts on that? Because I've already shared my thoughts on it, but as a Forest fan, how do you feel about that?
All right. Well, let me answer the first question and come on to that. I completely disagree. He's very happy at Forest and is not pushing for a move. And I've got that on good authority. Right? If the change happens, it happens. To answer your main question, it would be like me and Pete went out with the 12 with Potters and the boys the other day.
Be careful what you share on this.
There's certain things. What happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. I get it. If pictures could have come out of that evening with me and Pete, arm in arm, cuddling, enjoying a meal together, whatever, right? Am I then gonna have accusations from you boys saying, "Look at Pete working for the Forest fan base. He's switching.
well.
He's switching his YouTube channel from Loaded Mag over to Forest Fan TV
It's
because
funny you say
two
that,
mates
though,
are
Wolf.
chilling out together, and Ant wasn't there, and Ez wasn't there. You know what I'm saying? Like
Well,
you
you've
don't
got
have
to add into that, Pete. Sorry, Wolfie. You've got to add into that. If there was a little bit of friction, a little bit of frost, and there was talk of Pete moving to Forest Fans TV, and then Pete's going, no, I'm not doing it. No, don't want to go. And then all that comes out, and then we're sitting here thinking, well, exactly, Pete, exactly. This is.
I thought he was an Esther fan.
He's not living in a bubble. Is he?
Pete,
He's not
don't tell him
living in a-
about the contract negotiations we had. Right, we'll keep that off there.
He's not
no,
living. Alanga's not living in a bubble, though, is he? And like, if there was no link whatsoever to Newcastle, if there was no bid from Newcastle whatsoever, I would completely agree with what you're saying. Completely agree. But the fact that he knows that it's out in the media that Newcastle are bidding for Anthony Elanga, and then a couple of days later, Alanga's having a dance with Vasula, who happens to be a Newcastle United player, and then he plays tennis, and he's playing against a lad in a Newcastle shirt.
No. What shirt was Elanga wearing?
Oh, he was wearing the Semenyo shirt.
So why were the Bournemouth fans? I know there's not many of them, but why weren't they up in arms saying, "Oh, look at that, Elanga's on his way"?
Because there's no link. Because there's no link to Bournemouth. There's no link.
Anyone can create a link to anyone. I could say Forest are being linked with, I don't know, Osman.
Yeah, but the bid's out there, Wolfie. The bid's there. It's in the media.
Okay, but there were stages when the pictures were going up that there was no bids at all. It was just rumors and talks.
But we bid last summer.
Why haven't you looked at it the other way around? How do you know Sula's not twerking for me? Why is it a one-way thing?
60 million.
You haven't been.
Wait, and hold on. This is where I've had the only issue I've had in this transfer. Transfers happen between all clubs all the time. But I think there has been double standards in the Newcastle fan base. Because any time Isak is shown in a Liverpool top, or that we're going to be... And by the way, I have defended Newcastle on every single podcast to say that Isak has no reason to want to go to Liverpool, right? But anytime any Liverpool fan puts Isak in a Liverpool top, or says Isak, liked someone else's tweet who plays for Liverpool, whose grandma is connected to, their chairman, Newcastle fans go up in arms. But you then think I'm not saying you guys, I'm saying the fan base then thinks it's okay to then do the same towards a player that they're linked with. It's double standards on that.
No, we get that, but it's multiple occasions and comments and different things as well, isn't it?
Yeah, but there are links between Isak and Liverpool. There
Yeah,
have been plenty of reports on that.
Isak doesn't post them. Isak doesn't post himself having a meal with Darwin Núñez, does he? Because then we would be going, what's
yeah, but he
doing?
could be having a meal. You don't know. Like these posts and things between Asula and Elanga have not been friends for 5 minutes. Asula and Elanga and Isak have not been friends for 5 minutes. It's a long standing. I guarantee you, if I had the time and went back through all Elanga's posts, I would find him liking and commenting on not just those players, but other players from the Sweden team, Man United players who he grew up with. It's just because your fan base right now is looking at it in this snapshot of time. That's the big difference. And if Elanga stopped liking or commenting on this, they're mates, man. If honestly, it would be like if Pete stopped messaging me back, or you stopped messaging me back, Chris, because there was links and comments or whatever, or Pete or one of you boys stopped replying to our tweets, I'd be more insulted. I'd be like, what have I done to upset you guys? No, that's the thing with it. I think it's too deep.
Where do we start?
You guys are looking at it way too deep on these. He's like this, he's like the other, man. It's too far. Yes, the links are there, but him going to Newcastle for Asula would be the dumbest footballing career decision I've ever heard of. Because what if you go and sell Asula tomorrow?
No, I get what you're saying, and I think you've made a valid point, sort of linking the Elanga stuff to the Isak stuff, particularly on social media and the reactions to that. I think it's fair that you've done that. I do see differences though. I see differences in terms of the fact that Elanga is posting these things and willingly being involved in these things when he knows that look, let's be honest, we're looking at the surface of Newcastle United bidding for Anthony Elanga. Anthony Elanga would have been well aware even before this that Newcastle United were interested. So this is the point that for me I think is really important, is that why aren't Forest fans pointing the finger at Elanga? He's the one that's indulging himself in this. You can point the finger at Newcastle United fans all you want, and that's fine. I mean, we on this channel haven't necessarily done it. I've just forwarded stuff on to you, like what's going on here, kind of thing. But in general, if I was a Forest fan, and you can use the example, if that was Isak and he was posting pictures with Van Dijk and he was doing all this stuff and having his summer holidays with him and constantly doing it, I'd be pissed off. And I'd be asking him the question, why are you doing that when you know you're involved in a transfer saga with Liverpool? You're not. I don't feel the Forest fans are doing that with Elanga. And that's the question I would have there, is that he's doing it for us. And we're Newcastle fans. We're linked with him. Of course we're going to lap it up. But why?
Yeah, but you're starved.
Not?
That's the difference. You're starved.
But it's not about us being starved, though. We're linked with signing him. So if he's doing that, of course we're going to lap that up, because it does, regardless of what anybody says, it does raise a question about, is this related to the transfers? We don't know for sure, but it's going to raise the question for the fans of the player that are potentially coming to us. For us, from a Forest perspective, I'd be going, why are you continuing to post pictures and videos and liking and commenting on Newcastle United players' Instagram posts? Now, liking stuff, fine. You can still like stuff. It's not a big deal. Players do that all the time. But certainly commenting, certainly like doing videos, certainly doing pictures. And there are multiple over the course of this summer. And I have to be honest, Wolfie, like, I'm not being funny. Like, Newcastle fans will track players' Instagram interactions.
You also track planes as well. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Not me. The other two that way.
It's there.
You were tracking it, Daz.
No.
Chris was.
I like planes. I like planes.
But in reality, though, I don't understand why Forest fans aren't questioning Elanga on this situation rather than pointing the finger at Newcastle fans, because we are going to lap it up. He's still doing it, and he's done it multiple times. I've not seen anything in relation to his involvement with any Newcastle United player other than Alexander Isak, because they share the international scene with each other. Other than that, it's been non-existent, in my opinion. Unless someone's going to dig out loads and loads of stuff, I'm going to die on that hill that this has not been the norm until this summer. So for me, that makes it suspect that something's not right there. Even up to a day or two before that second bid or third bid, whatever it was that came in, that Fabrizio Romano on Thursday, even the day or two before, he was still putting stuff in. He was still putting stuff on social media. Have you not questioned him, Wolfie? Are you not questioning why he's doing it?
Not really, and I'll tell you why. About 2 months ago, Morgan Gibbs-White was heavily linked with Manchester City. I'm sure you boys will probably discussed it as well. And the same thing started happening. Morgan Gibbs-White has bought a house in Manchester. Morgan Gibbs-White has been pictured out with Phil Foden. Morgan Gibbs-White has been having a chat with Pep. Morgan Gibbs-White's got this picture, that picture, the other. And all along, like, my knowledge on everything in Forest right now is that no significant player wants to leave Forest. It would take an over-the-odds bid to then start that negotiation. That's why it doesn't worry me. Where I get annoyed, and I've got annoyed at Forest players before, is Murillo, when he came out and said he would like to join a Man City. That for me is different towards one footballer wanting chilling with a mate. Because I think we still get too wrapped into this whole thing that we think because we support, breathe, die, bleed our football team, that the players do. Elanga's a Man U fan. He grew up in their academy. Forest is a job. Yes, he does love us and he loves the players he's working with, but his life doesn't start and end with Forest. As would probably, you would say, 99% of Premier League footballers, if not higher. And they all have their circles. that they operate in, and that's not just close to the club they're in. Just similar to how we are on the YouTube world. We all know each other. We all know everyone else who does the YouTube thing. There's the circles. There's the ones who click more and ones who don't click as much. And no one would think if us four went out for a night out on the town that, you know, I'm recruiting you or you're recruiting me. I think we just are looking for stories because we are so starved of transfer activity that are like, has he fueled it by doing it? Maybe, but I don't see that as a line being crossed for me. I was more annoyed last summer at Murillo when he had an interview and said he would like to join Man City or Real or whatever it was. That for me becomes black and white. Whereas this is just, for me, I stop at the level of their mates.
It could be a case he's just buzzing off it as well. That's his personality to do.
Yeah.
But just want to go to some super chats, guys. First, I want to go for this one from Terrence, and he says, "I think that Wolfie fails to appreciate is that tracking plans and overanalyzing social media posts is half the fun for obsessive nerds like us. I, for one, I don't know how many times I tracked Mike Ashley's helicopter or through that takeover saga, but yeah."
I've tracked a few flights. We had, I got reports, I think it was last summer on deadline day. I got sent a message as a flight coming into the East Midlands from, I can't remember, it was like Norway or something. And that's going to the City Ground. There's negotiations. So we had to live on stream try and figure out who that player was. We were tracking that flight on air. So we didn't know who the player was, and it ended up being nothing in the end. But apart from tracking my wife and kids' flights, if they're going abroad or something.
So it is fascinating. You're just like everyone else then. You're just like every other fan base. So even though you question...
Well, I didn't know who the player was, bro. It's probably some innocent person who's just flying over, had some business meeting in somewhere in, I don't know, West Bridgeford or something. So, but no, those get to like sillier, because there wasn't even a deal agreed when that whole tracking the flight thing was going on, and it's half an hour from landing, and then you know what? There are some YouTubers I know that I said there was people who were at the airports of those flights, not that one. I'm talking about different ones, with binoculars outside waiting to see if they could see who it was. Like, that's just going to some ridiculous levels just to be like the ITK on what's going on there. So you hear some funny stories, boys, as I'm sure you do as well.
That comment there was one for us all to be happy about there. What Craig Lee just put on.
Yeah.
Funny how Man United sold Elanga for 15 million and brought Anthony for 80. And
I love that.
In the year's time, their values, I believe, will change.
Oh yeah,
swap places. So yeah, Elanga has a good season at Newcastle. Fingers crossed he signs. We'll get sorted, and Anthony will be worth 15 million.
I don't know who it was, Pete, but somebody, it might have been Craig actually, to be fair, but somebody put in the chat earlier on how times have changed, where Man United are twerking over between 5 and 8 million, hoping that we, do this deal so that they can get the 5 and 8 million that they'd be entitled to for Anthony Elanga.
You're bang on, bro. I got Cass calling me every other day saying, "Is it done yet? Is it done yet? I want my 20% or 15%." I was like, "How the mighty have fallen? How the mighty have fallen?"
They need that money to get Mbeumo deal done. They know, like, this is the funny thing about this Mbeumo deal, and like all Man United fans went mad about it because he'd effectively cornered himself in the market by saying he only wanted Man United and nobody else, which meant that we didn't even get to the table for him. But what that meant is that Brentford then held the cards, because Brentford could then demand what they wanted, because Man United had been put themselves in a corner. They put all their eggs in the Mbeumo basket, and they know now they have to go through with that deal. So they're going to have to end up paying whatever it is that's going to be needed to get that deal done, because if they don't get Brian Mbeumo now, they're going to have egg on their faces, something rotten. And Brentford are more than happy to keep him. Remember, they just added that extra year on his contract, that optional year. They'll just add that on. They are in a very strong position here. And like, it just makes me laugh how they are desperate for that little bit of extra money to be able to pay it off, because Man United need more surgery than both of our teams. We're talking about how we want signings. We're desperate. United need a hell of a lot of surgery, and they need someone to take their dead weight away from them.
Yeah,
they're finding that.
That's some heavy dead weight. Yeah,
exactly.
But do you know what I'll say, boys? This deal has been very slow.
Yeah.
But it looks lightning quick in comparison to how long it's taken these lot in the chat to hit that like button. There's like, what, 600 in here? We're on 176 likes? Like, at least 24 need to hit that like button now to get it to 200, because this is...
We're not on 200 already.
No, that's what I'm saying. It's slower than this deal. It's slower than this deal.
Sophie B's got target 250. Iniesta's got target 300.
You don't want to piss off Sophie. I'll tell you like that in the chat right now, man.
The new kid on the block, Iniesta as well. He won't be happy. Shout out as well to Clouds. He says, "Don't worry, Wolfie. Newcastle can't do deals anymore."
Do you know what?
Let's hope that changes.
Do you know what? I'm not gonna. It does feel like that. As looking at it, kind of objectively from the outside, you boys are moving slow, man. I expected you to have 2 Premier League titles by now, Mbappe in there and Messi and all them. You know what I'm saying? And it's just like, it hasn't moved quick, boys. It hasn't moved quick. Yeah, I mean, your marquee signing last summer was Vlachodimos. You know what I'm saying? It's like, it's not really something you can fly the flag on.
Shut up. Don't even start with that. That shouldn't even be part of our conversation here. But Cludes, I disagree. I disagree about we can't do deals anymore. I'll go back to Mark Douglas's piece. The transfer blueprint was set out. They want to get their priority signings in first, and then they'll move on to section 2. And section 3 will be the players that will be able to be signed once players are sold and money generated. It's taken longer to get our priority signings in. We just talked about Brian Mbeumo. We talked about João Pedro previously. Got strung along for a couple of weeks and then ended up at Chelsea. That's set us back. That's not for the want of trying. Remember, we put 1 or 2 bids in for João Pedro 2-3 weeks ago. We've put 3 bids in for Anthony Elanga. It's not that we haven't been active and just done nothing. It's just that for whatever reason, it's taken longer than we need to. But once these priority signings are through the door, I expect all the others to start falling into place. Just stay patient, people. Have faith.
Do Newcastle have pull?
Of course they do. Don't be doing that.
I'm legitimately just asking the question here.
We are shopping. We are shopping. Like, you look at Brian Mbeumo, Mateus Cunha. We had interest in. We didn't bid for him. We had interest in. You had João Pedro. You look at those type of players that we're in the mix for. All the other sort of traditional top 6 teams are all looking for them, all with more ability to hire higher wages, all got more ability to throw out more money into the sort of transfer fee. They're in that position where they're financially greater than us, not necessarily better on the pitch than us, but financially greater than us. So we're shopping in a market where we're fighting against top clubs to bring these players in. It's not easy. It's not easy.
Yeah,
but we could have quite easily gone for a lower tier player that was a lot cheaper, that we could have been the bully boys, and we could have bullied the likes of Brentford and Brighton and maybe 1 or 2 others and just gone in and stole a march and took that player because we're playing Champions League football. We could have done that, but we want the players that are going to kick us on at the higher tier. That's where I see it anyway.
Oh my God, look at your chat, man. They instantly react. They're so sensitive. I'm genuinely asking the question, okay? And I think it's a fair question to ask, and it's a question that can be put to Forest as well. It's a question that can be put to any club, really. Spurs. I mean, what have Spurs done? Apparently they're getting kudos. We'll wait and see on that one. I'm just saying, I'm struggling to remember a signing where you guys have been heads up with another big team and won that signing. You guys can say Elanga all you want in the chat, but no one really else is in for him. There's been rumors that Villa might be in for him. But do you guys genuinely feel, because I think, my honest opinion is, I think you should have more pull than you actually do as an outsider looking in.
I agree.
I think you're an excellent project. I think you can obviously afford wages and what have you, but I'm yet to see the evidence where you've gone heads up against a Man U or a Spurs or whatever, and seen you win that battle.
Well,
That's what I'm
I
saying.
think
And I'm
it's
not
the
saying
way
in
it
a
is.
derogatory way because I can say the same about my club.
If-
But I'm saying I would have
Yeah,
expected that from you guys.
Well, Ashby's just put it in the chat. We went head to head with AC Milan for Sven Botman. We had no European football. Hold on. We're going back a couple of years. We had no European football, and AC Milan had Champions League football. Like, come on, like we
I'm
were
talking. You know what I'm talking about, Pete? I'm talking prem on prem here. Like you're taking on the big six, right?
Yeah,
Because
and you've just answered that question. They are the big six. I've just talked about it: money, revenue, like history, and heritage. Like they've all of those teams that you've referred to. Okay, maybe not Spurs, but the other five have all got that heritage. They've all got that revenue and financial power to be able to overpower Newcastle United. We've got more money than all of them, but we've not got the ability to be able to use it. So we are going to be, it sounds horrible to say, but we are going to be the smaller club in that conversation because those teams are regularly in Champions League football or regularly in the conversation for winning trophies, regularly pay big wages, regularly pay big transfer fees. Like, come on, like if we look at it on a realistic perspective.
I think it's a fair question. It's a question that I aim at my club as well.
And I'm not necessarily aiming it at you. I'm actually aiming it
No.
at everyone, including the chat, because there is Newcastle fans that do feel like that we should have this more pull and we should be, pushing Chelsea out the way and Man United's out the way and all these teams. But we have to respect the fact that they are where they are for a reason and have been for 20, 30 years, been fighting at that top table. So they do have that pedigree that we don't yet have. We put another couple of Champions League positions in the next 2 years on our back, that changes things. If we start becoming that regular Champions League football team that plays in the Champions League year in, year out, if we can go back to back next season, if we can finish in the top 5 again and put another Champions League season on our backs and then do it again and do 3 on the back, changes things, because that's what changed Tottenham from being a mid-table club to now what's been considered a top 6 because they put back-to-back or regular Champions League seasons.
Yeah, but I still think, like, in my opinion, looking at this, I still think in this transfer window, you guys with Champions League should automatically have more pull than Spurs. And I could argue Man United, right? In my opinion, Man U haven't got Champions League or any European football. They got the hell with Man United rubbish. Okay, cool. There is something within that. But within the Spurs project, Spurs are quite tight on their wage structure. And they're struggling. I think why are Newcastle not looking at Kudos as an option as well? Do you know what I mean? It's like these are players that I would expect if Newcastle went heads up with Spurs. From me looking at it as in what I would do, that's the better project. However, you got the whole London versus Newcastle thing, whether we like it or not. There is a London pool, there is a Northwest pool. There isn't really a Midlands pool, there isn't really a Northeast pool. But it's just, I'm a little surprised, is what I'm saying. And Spurs, I mean, John saying Spurs is a good project. Okay, cool. If you believe that, then you believe anything.
Spurs is a great stadium. We've been there.
It's a good concert.
Yeah. Look, a few super chats, boys, just as well. Curtis Jones, any relation, says Wolfie.
He's one of my boys. Big up, Curtis.
And he says we have accepted little pull. Newcastle haven't. He says,
okay, so you have. I still haven't.
Yes. Also,
I'm not worried about that. We've still got pull.
Cheers,
if you got rid of PSR tomorrow, right? Say PSR wasn't a thing tomorrow, and you went out and you Mateus Cunha, prime example. If we went in for Mateus Cunha with Man United and we said to Mateus Cunha, how much do you want? And he was like 250 grand a week. Great, we'll offer you 250 grand a week. And then he had a choice between Man United and Newcastle. Mateus Cunha is joining Newcastle all day.
I hear you. I'm all for the removal of PSR. Because PSR
that's what's holding us back. That's stopping the pull. That's definitely stopping the pull.
That's what Chelsea did in 2003 when they got took over by Roman Abramovich. That's exactly what Man City did in 2009, 2010. That's what they had the capacity to do that we don't. They had the capacity that, and it's been talked about now. Even with Man City, you talked to LB about it way back when. is that Man City were able to offer. The only reason they got the big players in to revamp their team is because they had to offer more to get them out of those clubs, and they had the capacity, and they didn't have nothing to stop them to be able to do that. Why do you think Chelsea were able to sign the likes of Iron Robin and Damien Duff and players like that completely?
Damien Duff at Newcastle at the time.
Don't mention that.
He
Mention that.
He was, wasn't he?
That's
Yeah.
our point.
Making me go
Yeah,
back
he was
some of my
useless
memory here.
at us.
But
Useless.
they were able to do it. We can't. So,
Yeah, I just don't like it, is what I'm saying. Like, I look on paper when I saw Mbeumo being linked to you and to United. I remember I was on Terry's channel, literally 2 hours before it broke, and I was like, he should go to Newcastle. He's like, why? I was like, because there is a ready-made slot in that first 11 for him in a position he's very strong in, and he would work there and do very well there. And so obviously, Terry's a Man U fan. He's like, why do you not think he would work with us? I was like, because you've just got like a disease with your club. Anyone who comes, you destroy. I was like, why would anyone want to go there?
Can I just jump in here? Sorry, Chris
Yeah.
Brown C. Thank you very much for the super chat, Chris Brown C. He goes, that's not pull. That's players just joining for cash. Any players joining Man United are joining for cash. That's what they're joining for. That's why Brian Mbeumo wants to join Man United, because nobody else will pay him 250 grand a week. Nobody's going to pay him that. And that's probably why he still hasn't joined Man United, because Man United are scrambling around trying to get the money ready for him. But no other club's going to pay him 250 grand a week. Nobody will pay him that.
And money
Big
is
up
still
Chris, another one of the Forest boys. It's good to see the alliance in
It
the
is.
chat as well.
It's lovely, and thank you all for the super chat. It is much appreciated.
money is still pulled, by the way. Money is still pulled. You get pulled into a club because they pay big money. As much as we don't like it, as much as we don't necessarily agree with it, it's the truth.
Yeah, I agree. It is pull, but is it the right pull? Because look at the crap Man U have got. Do you know what I'm saying? Look at the mess Man U have got themselves in with. They can't get rid of Rashford's wages, Anthony's, Sancho's, and all the rest of them. It's a balancing act, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
Sticking with Chris Brown, he's another super chat. I just want to answer here. He says, Asula is second rate. No, Asula is a winner. W's in the chat. He also says Isak is leaving. No, he left. He's coming back from his holidays. He's going to sign a new deal as well. So, and he also says Elanga is staying. Yes, he's staying probably in the Jesmond because he's going to be signing for Newcastle pretty soon.
But yeah,
Cheers,
Chris, you keep rattling them, Chris.
You're not rattling this fella. Yeah, Isak has just left. Just been reported. He's left his holidays. He's on his way back to Benton for training tomorrow morning. We'll see you there, big man.
In the Liverpool top?
We'll see you there.
When's your first pre-season match?
19th.
Are you doing any tours or just the kind of?
Yep.
Are you on a tour?
Singapore.
Where?
Singapore to begin.
Okay.
Yeah.
That'd be a good revenue earner. So I get annoyed with Forest with their pre-season ones. Like, we're not getting to that summer series in America. We're doing a few games here and there, and then probably end up in Portugal or Spain again. This is where I think we're missing out as a club, is these stupid pre-season that you saw. Was it Man U, who's after their last game of the season flew straight out, play a game for £8 million or whatever it was in the Far East, if I remember rightly. Like, he's earned money, man. Do you know what I'm saying? It's like that one game is the gap we're talking about between Forest valuation and your valuation on Elanga. So I still think our clubs have a little way to go to get that commercial side of the game kind of nailed in.
But that's what we've already been doing, because remember at the end of last season, we flew straight off.
Saudi.
No, it was in Australia.
Oh, you played Australia, wasn't it?
Yeah. Spurs, literally a couple of days after the season finished. Like, we had to do that. Man United had to do theirs, but that's where I think we've been better than every other club outside the top six, because we are doing the things to generate revenue and money. We are doing things to widen the fan base across the world, because we're going to need that if we're going to be one of those teams in the future that is in that top bracket. And
we're
I do
way
think
behind on that.
Villa,
We're way behind.
Forest, Brighton's, West Ham's, I think they're all missing that trick. They're not doing that. I think that's the thing that we're doing well at this moment in time, but it takes time.
Boys, sorry to interrupt. We haven't spoken about Ross Wilson.
Oh,
Talk
yeah.
about him. Then. So
I completely forgot about that.
right, you
Oh my
obviously-
god, I was meant to be gone like half an hour ago. We've just been gassing away. She hasn't.
Welcome to
did-
Loaded.
Yeah.
I did see the time. I thought, shall I
And
tell him?
usually I'll have a WhatsApp saying the
Yeah.
kids. Right, I've had nothing. Keep going until we get the message.
Okay, so Ross Wilson is one of, I think, a few candidates that have been under multiple interviews with regards to the technical director, sporting director. I don't know what particular role he potentially may get at Newcastle United. But look, from a Newcastle perspective, we don't really know too much about him. But just tell us a little bit about Ross Wilson, what he's like. I think you don't mind him, do you? You think you're a little
I'm
bit
a fan of his, which I wasn't expecting to be because he joined us from Rangers 2 years ago. As in, well, they're not called Glasgow Rangers anymore. They're just Rangers, aren't they? After the whole thing. When he was signed, my DMs were inundated with Rangers fans saying thank you. I'm not even joking, boys. Like thank you. He's going to destroy your club. He destroyed our academy. He's just terrible sales he done on this. They've had protests about him at Rangers, like literal physical outside the ground protests. I was like, what the hell is Marinakis doing here? And he's come in and he's brought in, I forgot the dude's name he brought with him. It'll come to me in a second, who's now looking after like the youth academy setup and everything. I've got to say, boys, I've been quite impressed with him for the last 2 years. I always like to not have to hear about people behind the scenes in the hierarchy and what they're doing. Because in my opinion, that means they're doing a good job because they're not in the forefront. We're not talking about them. We're not talking about a mess up or what have you. And I've quietly been very impressed with the work he's done. He's set up the academy stuff, been involved in some of the recruitment and what have you. And I don't really want him to leave, if I'm being honest with you. I think he's done all right. Under the cloud he came in, I'm very, very surprised. Don't we all, Wolfie? Don't we all? What have I done now, Dan?
You've always done something wrong in Dan's eyes.
I know.
Apart from shuffleboarding, that's it.
Oh, by the way, right? I finally forced him to open his redirects, right? So I'm guessing he's going live at 9. So we might as well send the boys and girls that way. Are you live? Are you live tonight? Oh, you're agreeing with me. Thank you, Dan. Yes, I appreciate it. All right, sorry.
Does that happen often?
Dan, stop typing. You're putting me off now. All right, it's good looks. So I like not hearing about it, and he hasn't done anything at all in the 2 years that's kind of brought him to my attention or on my radar. In fact, I would say he has moved us forward. Because look at it, under him, we've ended up with European football. We've made some good signings and what have you. So I don't know what's happened from your side. All I know is apparently he got called for a second interview or whatever that is. I assume the processes are more like we would experience in the working world when it comes to that board level stuff rather than agents and what have you. I don't know, but I think he would do well for you. And maybe his interest is because I'm speculating here. He still has family ties up in Glasgow and it's a bit closer for Newcastle because there's been no indication of any need for him to move on. So kind of my 2 pence on him. You would do well to get him on. I'm surprised that he's looking for a move.
What has he done then at Forest that's kind of made you go, okay, he's doing all right? Has there been any major changes, any real positive?
There's been some controversial stuff, like Gary Brazil, who was like part of the fabric with Forest, with the academy and everything like that, who's managed us I lost count how many times in between managers he would cover for us. He got moved on from there, and that was probably the first red flag. It was like, whoa, he's come in and doing thing. But he kind of came in and brought his team, and this is how I want it structured and organized. And then it's just gone very nice and quiet behind the scenes. We haven't had, the PSR issues coming up. We haven't had sackings behind the scenes. There was like other people that were sacked and brought in 6 months later in the first season. With Forest, we had Dane Murphy as well, who was there before him, who we all lauded as this great person in there, but when you hear about the stuff he did behind the scenes, maybe he wasn't as good as we thought, but he was the one that brought Cooper in, so there was some shoes to fill on all of that stuff. So overall, my honest opinion is the less I hear about him, the more I like him, because he's just getting on with his job nice and quietly, and I think that's what you want. And it's completely the polar opposite to what the Ranger fans were saying, and I don't think I'd be alone with this opinion in the Forest fan base. If I'm being honest with you guys, because there's been nothing that controversial about him, unless I'm missing something or forgotten something. But yeah, I don't want him to go.
A person that just comes in, quietly gets on with their job. That's music to Newcastle fans' ears, especially when we're looking behind the scenes with sporting directors.
He did shake it up, Pete, when he first came in. Like, he got his people in order. I don't know if he's going to take them with him if this, of course, develops any further. But yeah, I did do a TikTok on it saying, why are you lot so obsessed with Forest these days? It's like, you want our players and our backroom staff as well.
You annoyed a number of Newcastle United fans. That's
Payback.
It's all love. It's all love.
It is all love. A few questions then to kind of like finish off, because we are getting towards that 9 o'clock turn off, and you've already done a lot longer than you anticipated, Wolfie. So I do.
Yeah, it's all good, boys.
And the redirect is in place, so you'll be transported to Dan
And
United's channel.
Dan, put your chat in subscriber mode. I'm not going to tell you again. I was literally about to what's happened.
Absolutely. Make sure you got those hashtags ready, as I told you the other day. Come on, man.
That's
Get
my
it
right.
Right, let's go to this one from Rich. He goes, Eagle-Eyed Football. He goes, question for Wolfie. Since he's trying so hard to rattle me, would Elanga money be used to buy Fofana and help Leon's finances? Actually, Leon, I'm going to get relegated. That's going to get overturned, I bet.
Talk to me about that. Don't worry about
behind
Richard.
the scenes. Behind the scenes, the
hearing
Texter
does, what you hearing
moving
does.
out. No, I heard it on an athletic podcast. Texter has kind of pulled out, and I think that will be the thing that will twist it again, and they'll be kept up. But they may still have to sell Fofana though.
Well, to answer Rich's question, firstly, I'm hurt by the fact that clearly you didn't watch the Ben Jacobs interview, Rich, where I sit there and watch all your stuff, right? Where we did address this with Ben Jacobs. This is a fascinating. I mean, we'd have to do a whole episode on this stuff, boys, and it's more Forest related than Newcastle, so I'll keep it very brief. But no is the answer. Marinakis and Textor have this amazing relationship going on right now, where Textor does anything Marinakis said. But what Ben Jacobs said to me was that Forest may have put a deal in principle in agreement with Leon for Fofana, who, by the way, is a baller. I will go and put him on my back at Leon and piggyback him all the way to the Midlands. I will, swim across the channel with him on my back. Absolute baller. So there is apparently a deal in place. Now, why is it there? So that Leon can argue that they have paper money. In principle, this deal is done. But when they come to their meeting next week, because they've been asked to find 70 million euros, I think it's 60 or 70 million euros by the 15th of July. So Marinakis has almost given him a guarantor to say, right here, let's call it 40 million pounds. It would go down as a near miss because it's very close to the PSR deadline. And Textor can say to them, well, that Greek dude over at Forest, we have an agreement here from about 2 weeks ago to say that he's going to give me 40, 50 mil. That's already most of that debt sorted out. Now, does he come to Forest or not? That's a whole different discussion. But that's the answer in a nutshell.
Interesting.
Cool.
Yeah.
Jordy Tune for Life says, even lads and lasses, the alliance wasn't broken when we sold Anderson and we come off worse than that deal. So no reason it should now. The Red Cartel are the enemies, not the other 14 clubs. You put that question out there before the show, Wolfie. Any more thoughts?
I'm not here to break any relationships, boys, or any alliances or anything like that. Oh, he's finally done it. Well done, Dan. Well done, Dan. For me, the business is the business and the game is the game. If you buy Elanga, well, we bought Anderson off you last season. if you sold us Shelby, you sold us Wood, who was completely rubbish when we first bought him from you. You nicked off me Lascelles back in the day, which I wasn't very happy with you guys about, because he was very promising. And you took our keeper as well, Darlow, yeah. So Al Darlow, man, he was good at Forest. So the game is the game. It doesn't mean that because we're in alliance can't do business together. The business is probably more honourable when it's done between friends than enemies.
Yeah, and Ian Woan screwed us over when we should have won the title that season. So yeah,
that goal. You talk about that goal.
Don't think I haven't forgotten that, Wolfie, and never ever forgive Ian Woan.
Oh, that is one of the best goal for me was Ian Woan's free kicks against Spurs, because that broke my brother's heart. But yeah, that goal again. But you guys just stood off him, and he was like, "Screw it, I'm just gonna hit one."
You turned into prime Real Madrid that night. You turned into prime Real Madrid like that when you played nothing of the sort all season. So don't give me that rubbish.
But you shouldn't have stood off him. What a left foot he had. I love that guy.
Wolfie, one from William Smith. He goes, "How's Tony Aniwoni after that horror crashing into the post?"
Yeah. We don't really know, to be honest. I've heard things like he's going to be on a recovery plan and it might take a while to fully recover from it. He was, if I remember rightly, in the crowd in the final game against Chelsea. So hopefully he's recovering and hopefully there isn't any long-term damage. But honestly, William, I haven't seen any kind of real-time updates on it, so I can't speculate on his health, but hopefully he's getting better.
Was he on the pitch last game of the season? I'm sure I saw an image that he was.
Yeah. I think he was as in the crowd for the last home game against Chelsea. So
yeah, good.
He's mobile, for sure. And thankfully he came out of his coma, etc.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Great. Chris has alluded me to this question, and it comes from Martin Makepeace. He says, "Question for Wolfie: being convicted criminals yourselves, what's your thoughts on Chelsea and Villa?"
Well, firstly, we're not criminals. We just got a speeding ticket, right? That's all I would say. I think Chelsea are disgusting and repulsive to have to cheat their way towards winning the Conference League by overpaying. So Charlie is in big trouble next time we're on a panel with him, because he's been criminal to me all season. As Pete, you will vouch for that. Yeah,
that's true.
Let's see what he's got to say about this one. What has
he said about that one? He's
silence.
Radio.
Yep.
But Lee Owens has asked the same question twice, so we better answer it. And because for you, Wolfie, he says, "Is conference the priority?"
Not if we're in the Europa, mate. Hi, Rich. What do you boys think? Just as a kind of objective view, how are you guys seeing this whole fight between? I call it. It's not really a fight, is it? I mean, we don't get to decide. Palace don't get to decide. But would you think it's unfair on Palace if they got kicked out?
I think it is. I'm sorry, go on.
I was going to say I think it is unfair. And the reason why it's unfair is not because they're being kicked out when so many others have got away with it over the years. I think that's the bit that's unfair, is that so many others have been able to get away with a lot worse and been able to stay in the competition. I don't think it's fair that they miss out. Like, for example, like their situation, I could be wrong here. I've not looked too much into it, but like you look at Man United's situation with last year with their owner, like
Nice.
and they were able to kind of quite easily kind of get away with that situation. I'm not saying it's the same. I don't really know the details on it, but you go back through the years, there are other teams that have been in similar situations and no one's batted an eyelid. So that's the bit that I disagree with. And actually, the thing that annoys me about this report at the moment is that they're now talking about heritage and the fact that Palace have not been in Europe like before is a reason for them to miss out and they've not got this European heritage. Like, how and why should that even be a thing? Like it should be based on whether they're good enough to be in it, and they were, because they beat Man City in the final. They deserve to be in that competition. Like obviously, from a Forest perspective, you'll be quite happy for them to miss out if it means you get that place. I know you're kind of conflicted there from that perspective, but look,
well, I wasn't until D started going on in our chat group like a couple of weeks ago, going on about it. So I think it'd be funny just for D, not for Rich. I want it for Rich. I don't want it for D.
yeah.
I don't really look. It's better for us to get Europa, but it's still not Champions League as far as I'm concerned. But it'll be funny to see D melt down on it. But with that logic, Pete, though, do you think it was fair Forest and Everton were charged with PSR then, when so many before had gotten away with it?
Well, yeah, but by that logic, it's exactly the same. Is that so many have got away with it? Like, you know, Man United for like 2 or 3 years after COVID was still claiming COVID.
Yeah, 40 mil.
And they should have been done for PSR. You go back to Chelsea, being able to sell hotels, women's teams, Villa the same. Otherwise, they'd have been screwed as well. Like, you know, that's what annoys me about the whole situation is that, like, you know, Villa should have been in a position where we were last year, where we had to sell some of our young players and generate money to cover PSR, but they've just been able to slap money down 50, like, and it's not even the whole team. They've sold a section of their women's team for 55 million.
Is it?
It's not. Yeah, it's a share.
I didn't know that.
It's a share in the team. It's not the whole team. It's not the whole women's team. It's a share in the team for 55 million. That's pretty much covered their PSR, and they're now fine and dandy. And it's just like, that's the frustrating thing, is that you got teams that have been able to do those types of things, and Man United with COVID and all the rest of it. But yeah,
Boys,
you know, you guys
sorry to interrupt. I don't know how true this is. Chelsea have recently made contact with Anthony Elanga's camp. This is according to what Romano has said on YouTube. I can't verify this. Someone's just sent me that message. I haven't
This could be a
looked
wind
into
up.
it.
Yeah, that would have been all over the place if that was true. And his
Has anyone in the chat seen it? Obviously, we've been live, so I haven't been able to see it.
Yes.
Well,
The show's wrapping up when Wolfie goes down that direction.
Would we be surprised by that with Chelsea? No,
No.
it wouldn't
No.
be. But
No.
yeah, I'm not convinced on that.
No. Wolfie, just to go back to the conference thing very quickly.
Yes, mate.
I think Conference League for you is perfect this season. I really, really do. And that's not me being derogatory. I genuinely think it's perfect because if I said to you now, fast forward to the end of the season, and if I said, oh, you've qualified for the Europa League, surely you'd bite my hand off for that, surely. And all you've got to do now is just go and win that Conference League. And as we've seen this season, I think there's a very, very strong chance that you're in the latter stages of that competition. And you can also manage your Premier League season as well, because it's not going to be too tasking. You'll be able to rest a whole host of players playing in that Conference League. If you're in the Europa League, so say you get into the higher competition, you're going to come up against a better quality of team. And potentially you get knocked out the Europa League, you don't do great in the Premier League, and then you've got nothing next season. Whereas if you're in the Conference League, you've got a good opportunity. You're still going to be playing Europe, but you've got that carrot of being able to qualify for the Europa League next season. Because if you win the Conference League, little bit of European silverware, and you guarantee European qualification next season.
Yeah, but if I'm in the Europa League and win that, then I'm in the Champions League. Like,
But the Europa League is going to be hard to win, though.
you say
wants
that,
a third
you say
star.
that, Chris. But I've had a look at the teams in there, and it's probably like AC Milan and Villa that I would say are the biggest threats in there. Outside of that, there's some absolute scrubs in there, man. I don't think
Chelsea in the final of the conference, they paid Betis.
Yeah,
They paid in the final, mate. You beat Betis.
It would be, well, I think we can win the conference. I hear what you're saying, and I hear the argument. I just think if Forest went into the Europa League, Marinakis would open the secondary checkbook out and say, right, here's the names of the Conference League crossed off. Let's get the names for the Europa League on. I'm still sore for where we bottled it last season. If I'm honest with you, maybe I'll recover in time to start the Premier League, but I wanted Champions League football, boys. But having said that, seeing the lack of business you guys have done makes me think, well, would we have been in the same situation?
It's the blueprint that we would have liked to have done ourselves. We went from nothing to Champions League, and it meant that we had a year of struggle before last season. I think that's the ideal situation, is if we'd have gone Conference League, a little bit like what Villa have done. Villa went Conference League, so they had a chance to build their squad whilst playing in a lesser European competition, and then were able to have their squad ready to then attack the next season, and they went and got Champions League. Now, and albeit they lost that by goal difference to us, but they've gone on and in a full competition season, including the Champions League and 8 games in the Champions League, they've gone on and still been competitive throughout the whole season and just missed out on Champions League again. If you look at their build, it's been progressive, but it's been a good build. And yet they've got their issues now, and they've obviously sold their women's team to be able to compensate that. But their build is probably the ideal situation of what Newcastle would have wanted. We've done it slightly differently, but that's not to say that it's wrong. Like, we've put 2 Champions Leagues out of 3 seasons on the board, and that's not easy to do. But you want what we did, Wolfie. You just want to go straight to. You want to go straight.
Well, I want to go back to where I belong. You know what I'm saying? You know what was? I don't know if this is an interesting question, but it feels interesting in my mind. I'm just going to split it out like I normally do with these questions. Who do you think you are? How can I explain this? Who are you linked to in this transfer window that you wouldn't have been linked to without Champions League? So I'm looking at it and thinking, I don't think any of the players you're linked to you couldn't have gotten without Champions League. Does that question even make sense? I don't know.
Probably only Scalvini. I think if we weren't in the Champions League, we wouldn't be linked with Scalvini.
Yeah.
Do you get him?
Not to say we're going to get him, but
but do you get my point? I don't think that this chat so far, and the window's still got legs left in it. I think I was expecting a bigger caliber of names to be linked with you guys, if I'm being honest. I think that all the players I think you could have got Elanga in Europa. I think you could have got Trafford without even European football. Who's the other one you link? I can't remember. There's another one, wasn't there, that you're starting to push. But all these players, I don't think the Champions League thing has come into effect in this transfer window for you yet.
I mean, we wouldn't. I don't think we'd have gotten.
Do you get my point, Pete? Yeah,
I do get it. I think João Pedro is one that I think if we, although he was interested in coming to us, when going to Chelsea, I don't think that would have been one that would have happened. But this is what all opposition fans do. This is what, like, even on the 12th man chat, this has kind of like been my standpoint continuously, is that all opposition fans just expect us to go big. Like Potts says it all the time. You're going to go for the top. You're going to go big in the summer. You're going to sign this player, that player. No, that's not how Newcastle are working at this moment. That's not how Eddie Howe works. Is that
No, I'm not saying it like that, Pete. I'm not. I'm saying it like my expectation was that you'd be linked to. I can't even think of a player, but I mean, who's people talking about now? Like a Gyökeres. Let's just pretend you needed a striker, right? Like a Gyökeres. I'd have expected those style of links. At least links. Do you know what I mean? Or like
Edison
approaches.
Midfielder, Edison at
Atlanta. Yeah, something like that. Yeah, perfect example. Yeah. I think what someone just said there in the chat is an excellent point. Is who you haven't lost because of it. I think that definitely needs to be taken into consideration. But I just think if this is my expectation, what I expect from Newcastle, would your expectations have been higher or lower from what I'm saying here?
It's worth pointing out as well, Wolfie, a good friend of the channel, Liam Kennedy from Newcastle, Wales. He's mentioned, I think it was today, boys, I could be wrong, but I think it was today, saying that we've been linked with 2 European players who aren't in the media. Like, their names are not known in the media. So I would hope, and I'm sure the boys will back me up with this as well, I'd hope that I think the club are quite happy with the likes of the links with Elanga and Trafford. So that's not to say that we're not going to do those deals or we're not trying to do those deals, but almost to keep all the attention on those 2 so that we can kind of shop over here as well and not be disturbed kind of thing. I do believe like that's going on as well. Like I don't think we want everybody to know, we're after, I don't know, Kolo Muani from PSG, just a name.
Oh, you don't want him, man.
No. But we don't want everybody to know that that's the player we want. Particularly because it feels like the likes of Chelsea. Oh, thank you, Sophie. Brilliant 300. Thank you, everyone.
Cheers, mods.
we don't want to alert to everybody the players that we're after. I think it's the worst kept secret ever that we're after Elanga, we're after Trafford, but then I think there will be others as well. But I take your point, and it is a great point because
Yeah, I'm not saying it in like a what's going on start. It's just like my weird logic would do. I just think that everyone you've been linked to, I think you could have pulled anyway without Champions League football.
Yeah,
so
things
what's
kind of
that
changed a
Champions League
bit.
added?
Things kind of changed a bit with their sporting director leaving as well, where Eddie Howe is in total control of the transfers, and he's gone first anyway for Premier League based players. Now we're seeing a bit of a pivot now, or we're potentially seeing a pivot as he starts to look into the European market. But that must have been a tactic that they wanted to play. So we're not going to doubt it, and let's see how we get on. We've a lot to do. Speaking of a lot to do as well, I want to give a shout out to Marty as well for the super sticker. Thanks very much, Marty. And Nobby says, can we discuss Bruno's tattoo? Never leaving. Cheers, Nobby. Let's hope he never does leave.
Tattoo discussions.
Yeah.
You don't read into so many things, man. You really do.
One last question for you, Wolfie. And it comes from Choppy. He says, question for Wolfie. Will Elanga get a nice reception at the City Ground when he signs for Newcastle?
Yeah, as long as he doesn't score against us, I see no problems there. Yeah, no, we got you know what I'll say on Elanga, just as an additional thing. Flex from United View, and DR Sports. When we signed him, I spoke to him a lot, and he highly praises Elanga off the field. He's a very, very religious person. He takes his religion very seriously. You've seen what he does with his body. He takes looking after his body very seriously. So I hear nothing but good things about Elanga off the pitch. So you're gonna get someone who's he's gonna slot into whatever dressing room he goes to. So from that perspective, and there's no Forest fans that I think have animosity for Elanga. If he was to go, it's not like he's an academy player of ours. So he's had 2 good seasons. Would have made good profit on him, and we would wish him all the best.
Yeah. Just last little bit from me. Does he ever switch wings? So he predominantly plays on the right, but can he play on the left as well?
Yes, it's infuriating. He thinks he's a left winger. Actually, I'm glad you brought this up because I was going to mention it earlier and I forgot to. He would prefer to play on the left wing. He is not. I don't think he's good on the left wing. I think he's better on the right wing. There are times in games where he's switched across to the left wing while Callum Hudson-Odoi has still stayed on the left wing, and we've ended up with 2 left wingers. Nuno was questioned about this, and he kind of said, I'll let the players do what they wanted to do. Yet when the ball was crossed in, there was no one running in from the right wide position. So he has it fixated in his head. I think he's been on record to say his preferred position is on the left-hand side, but I don't think he's as effective, which is surprising because it would make him an inverted person onto his right foot, and he's a good finisher. But I think he's better on the right-hand side, personally.
That's where we'll be signing him, that's for sure, if we manage to get it through. But look, I think we'll end it there. We've kept it way longer than, probably nearly an hour longer than we anticipated for you to be staying. But Wolfie, absolute pleasure to have you on, mate. Great chat as always. The last time you come on this channel, just make sure you go and subscribe to Forest Fans TV. Go and give them a sub. We are both in the ballpark of the same milestone. Someone put in the chat earlier on tonight that we're around 700 subscribers away from 30,000 subscribers on Loaded Mag NUFC, which is absolutely amazing. So anyone that's new watching the show now or watching it back, give us a subscribe. Let's get us to that 30,000 and make sure we're helping Wolfie to hit that milestone too. We're gonna redirect you to Dan United. I would like
to put words in his chat. What word should we go with?
Just go with not just the word, just United.
Cartel 6. Cartel.
United is black and white. That's what I want you to put in there.
That's the catchphrase.
I like it.
That's the catchphrase.
That's the link for the Football Content Awards is also in our show description, along with a link to a hyperlink to Wolfie's channel to subscribe as well. But What is it again, Pete?
United is black and white.
That's too long,
Right.
man.
That's what we're gonna do for tonight.
All right. Well, I'm gonna go in there and see if they all do it.
Right. No music. We're going straight into Dan United. See you in the next one. Thanks, Wolfie.